So some of you were here last week, and we had a guest appearance by Rudy the Bronco busting. Rudy, what was that about? Took a lot of nerve for me to stand up here and put on the clothes and play like a Bronco buster for a minute, just so that I can make a point about being willing to ride with life the way it is, no matter how wild the ride might seem. A few weeks before that, on Super Bowl Sunday, you might have been here that Sunday, I wore the clothing of a referee, and although I've never been a referee in my life, I just took on that guise because I wanted to make the point about the game of life and how to play with the real rules. Well, today I have the unmitigated gall to stand here in front of you and wear the guise of a meditation teacher. Although I know absolutely nothing about it. And I've been leading meditations and teaching meditations for coming on 30 years now. And sitting in my private practice longer than that. And I know from all those years of leading meditation, being in meditation, having been taught by some excellent teachers, that I know this much about the subject. And I also know the power of simply being willing to stand on what I know and speak for it. A few minutes ago, I led you through a brief meditation. Without needing a show of hands, without having to talk about it, I would simply like to ask you about that experience. To what extent were you able to be present with being present? Just tell yourself the truth of it. To what extent was it possible to follow your breath? Oh, wait a second. To what extent was it able to find your breath? To what extent were you able to find the breath within your breath and then to find the space between the breath? Based on my experience with groups in meditation, it's reasonably safe to say that of the 90-some people who are in this room at the moment, approximately every one of you did the right thing and did it perfectly. And approximately 98% of you felt like you didn't. That there are one or two, maybe five of us who are sitting in this room and just were able to feel at peace with feeling at peace and feel at peace about the whole thing. The rest of us were mostly trying to feel at peace, but weren't at peace with the extent to which we're able to call forth peace. Thought we should look better. Found ourselves listening to the baby crying. Found ourselves thinking about our shoes, our hair, about being hungry or being full. And then there were a number of you, a number of us, who were able to spend some time in peace during that 4 or 5 minutes of guided meditation. And some of you for a long time, say 5 seconds, which is, frankly, a really long time to be at peace. Many of you have heard the statistic before because I'm continually astounded by it and repeat it often. But the average adult in our culture thinks 50 to 55,000 thoughts a day. And that's during our waking time. If you do the math, it works out somewhere to around 1 thought every 2 seconds. And that's if you haven't had a cappuccino or a double espresso or feeling stressed out about work. The kind of things that tend to ramp up your thoughts and they go even faster than 1 thought every 2 seconds. But in point of fact, if that's the average, most of us think much faster than that most of the time. We're processing a thought every second. So when you sit down or stand up, or lie down to do meditation, but today we're sitting down. When you sit down and say, okay, it's meditation time, it must be because Rudy said it's meditation time, close your eyes. I'm not ready for this, okay, I'll do this. Immediately, as soon as you start paying attention to the thoughts of your mind, what happens? Your mind is thinking at the rate of a thought every 2 seconds. You start thinking about your thoughts, then how fast do you go? About twice as fast as that, because you're now watching your thoughts having thoughts. That's the bad news. The good news is it doesn't matter. Because as we continue to simply focus on our willingness to turn to the space between our thoughts, something miraculous happens. The bad news is you can't really talk about what it is that happens. The worst news is I'm going to try to talk about it anyway. Mostly because I feel passionate on the subject and I see so much suffering in my brothers and sisters. And I'm just trying my best to help. So, if you're here and interested in the subject of meditation, wonderful. We'll spend the next 8 or so minutes talking about it, then engaging in another side of meditation. If this is all boring to you, you'd rather not hear it, it's going to be over in 15 minutes, don't worry about it. It won't hurt much. Martin Luther King Jr. once famously said, I submit to you that the person who is afraid of death is not free and cannot be free. It is only as you face and embrace death that you can be free. At some level, meditation is the process of watching your ego die for just a few moments, minutes at a time. And your ego wants to live. It wants desperately not just to live, but to be in charge. And as soon as you tell your ego, okay, I'm going to breathe, I'm going to go at peace, and I'm going to say goodbye to you for a second, it comes out. It's got all kind of reasons why you can't. There's noise, you're too sleepy, you're too wired, you're too tired, you're too busy, you don't have time. The ego stuff. And the process of simply sinking into the space between your thoughts is the process of simply allowing your ego to die for a moment. And it is a very fearful thing, which is why there is so much resistance. What I invite you to do is just join me for a moment in breathing into the awareness that that's okay. There's nothing wrong with being human. You are human. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with being hungry for the sweet taste of the divine, for the infinite, for the deathlessness, for the eternity which is your birthright. There's absolutely nothing about feeling somewhere back here a vague, not quite able to reach itch to be more at peace than you currently are. And there's nothing wrong with forgetting about it and just letting it go and letting go of the need to be perfect and the need to be holy and the need to be better than you currently are. Because the biggest obstacle that most Americans face, I say Americans, people in our Western culture, our proactive, but get her done culture, the biggest obstacle we face to leading, falling, living in a space of peace is a desire to make peace happen, to make that calm happen. I'm going to make my mind shut up so I can be at peace. Good luck with that. I'm going to meditate so my day gets better. Ain't going to happen. Thich Nhat Hanh says one of the great, possibly the greatest addictions that we suffer in our Western culture is the addiction to hope. And you breathe into that. We are a people of hope. Of course, it's going to be better tomorrow. It's going to be better. Hope, yeah. For most of us, hope means this isn't good, over there is going to be better. Meditation asks me to just give up that delusion for a moment and be with what is. Just be with what is, knowing that as I am with what is, it makes it possible for me to feel better. But trying to make things feel better is impossible. I'm talking in circles. I told you with bad news I was going to try to talk about it. Breathe with me just a moment. Okay, first of all, tell yourself the truth about your breath. Is your breath easeful and healthy? Or you have cold, allergies, asthma? Is there something congesting your... First, be in touch with what your breath is, without judging. If your nose is all clogged up and you can hardly breathe through your mouth because cedar fever or you ate a whole bunch of ice cream yesterday and you're allergic to dairy, just be with it. Don't try to change it, but be with it. Be with your breath. Is your breath easy? Be with it. And you stay with that breath. You may notice that you are not breathing as much as you are being breathed. Feel the ease of that, of the awareness that to the extent you have a healthy respiratory passage at this moment, that your lungs and your nostrils and esophagus, bronchial tubes are fairly all clear and open. It's easy. There's nothing you need to do to make breath happen. And if your breath is constricted for health reasons, just be with that. And notice that the breath is still happening. Take a moment to sink into the ease of that. Now slowly, gently, come aware of your willingness. Simply rest in the space between your breaths. Notice that there is a slight, ever so slight pause between your inhale and exhale. Just for now, sink into that space. Every time it comes around. All right. And then bring your attention back. Just remove my voice. Notice I've got this pen swinging like a pendulum. Swinging first to the left and to the right. If I had a slow motion camera and could play this image back to you in super slow motion, you would recognize that the pendulum swings one way and then the other way. But at the moment when it's swinging neither out nor in, it is an absolute rest for a moment. That's sort of like a breath. In a healthy person's breath, you're inhaling and exhaling. But And there's probably a mathematician or a physicist in this room who can explain it better than I can. But at that moment when it's neither expanding nor contracting, when it's neither moving left nor right, that moment is aligned with infinity. And that moment is precisely the moment that you can use, I can use, we can use, to sink into that place of rest for just a nanosecond. It's not the only way to meditate, but it's a good way to meditate. And what happens as you continue to relax into this way of breathing, breath meditation, into this particular form of pranayama, is those pauses between inhale and exhale just become longer. They just become more easeful. And then at some point, through willingness, through skillful practice, through guidance, there's a possibility of letting go and simply staying in that place between thoughts for a long, long time. Seconds, minutes, hours, years, or a half second. It doesn't matter how long it is by the clock, by the physical clock. That's not the point. The point is resting in that place where you align with the divine, sink into the infinite, and just let go of thought. I've heard that explanation is sort of like being lost in a snowstorm. You're totally lost in a blinding, not lost in it, you're in a blinding snowstorm and you want to get over there, you want to get to the barn to rescue your dog, and you know the barn is only 10 feet from the house, but it's a blinding snowstorm and the snow is 4 feet deep and you could die. So what do? You tie yourself to a rope and you head in the direction of the barn, right? You just hang on to the rope, but you head in the direction of the barn until you get there. You feel around until you get there. And then, at some point, when you get to the barn, you got to untie the rope so you can get the dog who's now scurrying around because he knows something's weird. You know, you got to scurry around and catch the dog. Same way. Really? You're in the house. You want to get to the barn. You hang on to your rope. You really tie the rope and you do your business. You came to the barn, you catch the dog, you feed the cow, whatever it is you're going to do in the barn. The same way, using the breath as meditation is sort of like having a rope to hold on to. The breath is your rope. The baby cries, the car horn honks, you find yourself thinking hungry, you're thinking about your to-do list. Come back to your rope, your breath. Hold on to the breath, the rope. And still heading toward that place over there where you want to be, which is meditation. Over there. But right now you're still kind of stuck in a snowstorm with your thoughts. A blizzard of thoughts is coming and you can't see your way to the barn, to the peace, that place you want to be. So just hang on to the rope, the breath. Just keep coming back to the rope, to the breath. And then at some point you feel you're anchored and you think you're about there, you just kind of let go, leave the breath. You hear it. Oh no. Back to the breath. Back to the rope. And you stay with the breath and then you come closer to the side. And eventually, I promise you, eventually, there is no barn, there is no rope, there is no cow, there is no dog, and you just are. It is exquisite. Exquisite place. Beautiful light. At least, that's my story. I'm trying to relate it. So, this is the temple of my adult This place of being exquisitely alone, connected to one with everything, this place of meditation, really is worth the work. And there's no work to be done. It's incredibly easy. Please, if you feel guided to learn more about meditation and practice more often, consider coming on Wednesday nights. Or practice on your own, or read a book, or go join the Buddhist Sangha that meets at the Unitarian Church every Sunday night at 6 o'clock. Where you do it, how you do it, that's your business. But this opportunity to sink in the space of well-being, infinite life and love, is